you know, to 13 people. And once we even accommodated because Tante Bela wanted to come back earlier. And so we found a room for her, I don't know where, but you know, we all squeezed in and we had these wonderful memories. And then I remember the holidays. I mean, we would never have a Seder that we all did not participate in. And it wasn't like it is for now. We all had big houses. We had small apartments, but we accommodated all of the families. And we sat together and we recited the entire Haggadah. But they were beautiful because we sang and we enjoyed and we were all together. And we were together for Rosh Hashanah and all of the holidays, but I particularly remember Pesach and how meaningful it was. So we would either be at our apartment or we'd be at, you know, at your house at 18th and 19th and 18th and Ridgeway. Anyways, it's been a wonderful life for you. You've raised two very wonderful children and your grandchildren, of whom we are so proud, as you well should be, Mark and Hannah. And it was wonderful that Judy saw to it that she named her daughter after your mother, which children always do. So it was lovely. And Hannah's here, I guess Mark is. It's a joy to be here. And my special thing that I will always be grateful to you for is that you introduced Shane to Rana. I mean, this is no small matter because you try to mix and it doesn't always gel and it doesn't always take. But you gave Shane Rana's number. He went to Carnegie Mellon. She was in Pittsburgh at the time. It was long distance. They both were in different communities. And he took her name, he called her, and
Four children
later. So that'll be something that we will always be grateful, indebted to you, and we love you for it. And when Judy mentioned the grandchildren and your joy in them and in your children, there's a saying in Pirkei Avot, I wish I had all the words, but I didn't know I was going to speak today, and it's my favorite. Ateret zakenim b'nei banim, and then it's something about parents. Grandchildren are a grandparent's joy, and parents are honored by their children. Your children today have done you a tremendous, really, to think of it in time to do this and to have this beautiful celebration where all of your siblings could be and your parents, your parents' grandchildren are all here is a special tribute and a special occasion, and it doesn't always work out that way. So the fact that they had it and that we're all here and we're all here to celebrate your wonderful life. And may you live ad me'avis, when in Hebrew and in Yiddish is bis 120, a long life, and may you continue to travel and enjoy and be full of energy and happiness and good health.
Somewhat of a contrast last night at the Vicky and Jeff's wedding.
Right.
So again, thank you for all coming and participating. I did want to follow up on a few things that Judy had said before I let Mom have the last word. Something she's prone to try and get. That she really did have a big influence on both of our lives, both in the way that she showed how to live one's lives, and also she introduced Judy to the theater, and she taught me to play bridge. So we got each of us to do that. And I will say that, Judy said that she's always been supportive, and she has been a wonderfully positive person and a great mother. But I will say that at the time, during my teens, when I was busy building and setting off fireworks, she wasn't always entirely behind that. And in fact, I think that when I switched to bridge, she saw that as a much more benign alternative. Also, as talked about the travels, that actually sort of, from my point of view, it was fairly normal during my childhood to think that you always started each year in a new school. However, then when we finally settled on Urbana, she then did stick there for the next 40 years. So seems to definitely have found her home. I also want to say that in terms of her practice, you see that she really does belong to a lot. Judy cut out of the program that there's a list, I think it's up there, but pictures of all the organizations that Mom belongs to, and she certainly shows that you try and do well by doing good, and she has no problem being a do-gooder, and working hard at trying to make things better, and she's certainly very active. One other thing that hasn't been touched on, she also worked for quite a long time, running the browsing room at the University of Illinois, and all reports that I have did a wonderful job there. I often would meet people who were at the University of Illinois, and I was surprised how many of them knew about the browsing room and had visited it and had good things to say about it. We also heard from a couple of the people who worked for her who were quite happy to tell us what a great boss she was to work for. And I think if your employees like you, that says a lot for what kind of person you are.
Oh, this,
And she hired all my friends.
Yes. So we got-
nepotism.
Yeah, so we did get one happy birthday greeting from one of her. Chris was a former, Chris Chato, a former employee, another of Judy's friends who was hired. Says, you served and served as a great role model for me, an independent woman who's not afraid to be herself, someone who stands up for what she believes in and enjoys life. Reminisces on the browsing room, books and more books, watching Anne pore over book reviews, choosing which books to order. I may not have read all the current books, but I shelved them. I can't spell, but I got good at alphabetizing. Quiet evenings surrounded by books, all the usual and unusual people coming and going, minding the ship while Anne went to lunch with her women friends, seeing Chip one time and not realizing he actually came over just to say hi. Big brothers don't speak to their little sister's friends. And in big, bright letters, you've brightened my life. So I think it's fair to say that all of those who have come to know my mom have felt that way, I think, about their experiences with her. And now we're happy to have her day.
Last night, I'm not going to give a speech. Then he went on and gave a speech. But I'm not going to do that. I'm really not going to give a speech. I just want to thank, I haven't written anything or prepared anything, but I just want to thank my super children, Judy and Chip and Hannah and Jan, everybody who helped prepare this thing, and and worked so hard. And when they first mentioned it, I was really surprised, but I was thinking maybe I should say no, but anyhow, it's kind of nice to have this done while you're still alive, because it reminds me of funerals I've been to where people get up and talk and they show pictures and stuff, but this way I'm still alive and, and can hear all the stuff. So, I really don't have much more to say. I think everybody spoke very well. I suppose I could add other reminiscence, but
Yeah, you can tell some of the embarrassing stories about them now.
well, I can tell a story about when Chip made a little bomb and the state's attorney came to the house.
I didn't make it. I merely helped deliver it.
No, that's right. He didn't make it, but he helped.
He aided and abetted.
Yeah.
He aided and abetted. He wasn't smart enough to tell the kid, stop doing that. Or when Judy, that it's not a good idea. I won't go into his long story. And when he wanted Judy to get out of the bathroom, so he put a firecracker under the door. But most of the time, I think he was a very good brother and very tolerant. And I wasn't really planning to, like Jeff, I wasn't planning to go on like this, but, what was I going to say? And the kids were really very accepting. I mean, most of my life has been really very good and very positive. I've been very lucky, especially, you know, to have such two great kids and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. There was only really one part of my life that was hard, and that was, you know, the 2 years after the divorce. But after that, I was just fine. And, you know, now I feel so independent. I think it would be hard for me to to accommodate to another person. Because I'm so used to doing what I want to do and not having to get anybody's approval or anything like that. So, and I'll end here. So thank you so much for coming, and it's really wonderful to have you all here and having fun like this and sharing this event with me. And I plan to live a good while longer, so.
To offer you, this is a tape of messages that were left on Judy and Eric's answering machine when Mom was in Turkey and there was an earthquake. So they were away on a trip, and when they came back, they found all of these messages on the answering machine.
Bring it over to the microphone. That's not.
We're experiencing technical difficulties.
I think the mic should be
Is it
moved.
actually
Lower.
playing?
No,
Lower
I think
the
it's the
Lower the mic.
I don't think it's the mic, it's the tape recorder.
Can't understand it.
It seems like the tape's not playing
I
right.
don't think it's the tape. The tape's not playing.
Oh, you should have left it in the other machine.
I guess
A high-class machine.
we had a toy machine yesterday.
Is it possible that the battery is strong enough to plug it in?
Oh, okay. Now we have to find the beginning. Say anything before we,
Adjourn?
well, we don't have to adjourn quite yet.
That's
but
right.
Before we let you go back to
Let
looking
people
at
go back to
pictures or
socializing and looking.
whatever they were doing.
I'll share a
Okay,
quick story.
someone from, yeah.
For the younger generation.
Besides us.
So since I was in the beginning stage, okay.
I think if you move the.
Make the mic higher. No, just turn it.
That's my dad.
Honey, there's a...
Oh, okay. Since I had the honor of being in the beginning phases of the traveling series, before she got more sophisticated and found the planes that could take her to far-off lands, we went on a camping trip, and this was right after I had gotten my driver's license. As a matter of fact, the day before I got my driver's license. And so we were going out west. I flew out to Champaign to meet them, and then from there we were driving west. And in their infinite wisdom, they had me as being the last driver of the day, going west into the sun. Fortunately, the roads were flat and empty and really didn't present any kind of problem. But one of the things that we did on this particular trip, which was not typical of your average tourist activity, was we went to a Wind Cave National Park and we did something called spelunking. Now, spelunking is when you actually climb through caves, for those of you who may not have done that. And at one point we're on this spelunking trip and we walked out of the wall of a cave, and as we were walking out of the cave, out of the wall, there was a walking tour that was going through the cave. And I think they were a bit surprised to see us passing through. But her adventurous spirit had no limits, and I was actually quite proud of her undertaking such an endeavor. And
Oh, I remember that vividly. I had no idea it was going to be so difficult. They went at a very fast speed,
yes.
and I had a hard time.
And even just getting out at the end, because there was a steep,
We wore these helmets,
yes, the helmets with the flashlights on the helmets.
like miners.
Right, yeah. So you could see where you were going. So that was my experience with Dan, which I will never forget. And of course, Judy along with us. So I just wanted to share that. With
Well,
you.
then I'd like to add something. I was joining, Herm and I were joining John and Rana on a trip out west, and Ellen. And we were dropping off different people, and by the time we got, Irv left from Denver, I don't know where Ellen left from Albuquerque, I said, why don't we go whitewater rafting? We were going into the Colorado Rockies. And the kids looked at me and they wondered, gee, do you really want to do whitewater rafting? I said, yeah, I read about it. And I said, I said, if Annie could do it, I said, Annie had gone whitewater rafting a year or two before. And although, you know, I'm, 2 years older, or thereabout, 3, I thought, you know, if Annie can do it, I can do it. Well, the only difference is, when I went whitewater rafting with the kids, I got so petrified when we went through the first rapids. The Colorado River was swollen about 4 feet at the time. I started screaming, I said, let me out of here. And they said, no, you can't, we're in the middle of this trip. So they tied me down the back, well, they also, you know, Rana is this small, Rana's, you all saw Rana last night. She's under 5 feet, she weighed 90 pounds. And the next thing you knew, and they appointed John as the driver of the boat. And John had never been in a boat before. So when I saw Rana in the river and they pulled her out, I started screaming. I said, let's call this whole thing off, and they wouldn't. So they tied me down. They put Rana in the middle between 2 guys so she couldn't fall into the river again. And that was my trip. So I decided I'm never going to go by what Annie does, because it didn't work out.
Okay, I didn't prepare anything. Annie, where are you? There you are. I just want you to know how much my parents loved you and truly respected you, and what a role model you were for me, and how much of a role model you've been for so many of us, because you're a woman who did it. You've done it all. You made it on your own. You pursued a professional career. The travel list is astounding, and really, kol hakavod to you. And I really want to take this moment also to thank Betty and Al, and Yetta, and Lou, and Annie, and Corky, and Izzy, because all of you have really shown our generation what it is to pick up and go to simchas. You know, we've always lived knowing that family was so important. And the last time I saw all of you together was at our wedding 3 years ago, and it doesn't happen enough. Well, how should I say that? Simchas need to happen.